RX Television, RxMuscle.com. We are back after the Arnold Classic. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Now on speciesnutrition.com, Creolize, finally available, ultra micronized creatine. Unleash your powers. Creolize by speciesnutrition.com. Get it now as we now bring in Dave Palumbo. Dave, Creolize is live, but that hasn't been the lead story. The Arnold Classic this past weekend, of course, Cedric McMillan finally winning the crown. Ahmad Ashkenani winning the 212. And then a whole lot of shenanigans that took place backstage in the media room and then everything in the follow-up from that weekend.
Yeah, I hate that the backstage antics are taking precedent over the fact that, Cedric McMillan won his first Arnold Classic, and then Ahmad Ashkenani really proved that he's the number 2 contender in that 212 division. And, of course, the big upset in figure with Latoya Watts losing to Candice Lewis. The bikini upset where Angelica Texera beat the reigning Miss Olympia, Courtney King. Obviously, Oksana Gershina doing her last routine at the Arnold. She'll never compete at the Arnold again and wins that in spectacular fashion. We had, what's his name, from England? Remind me, Johnny.
Ryan Terry.
Ryan Terry, right, winning men's physique, beating a very good Andre Ferguson. I mean, that was a super exciting event. And then, of course, the surprise of the whole weekend was Daniele Castillo from Brazil winning that women's physique, beating, relegating Autumn Swanson to, I think, 5th place. So that was it was an exciting weekend. And it's unfortunate. And I think there's a couple of people out there that don't know the real story. And I'm not going to go into the whole story again, but we weren't looking to start trouble. You know why? Because we were the only media website that did any coverage prior to the show. We had all the athletes on, we had interviews, we had Iron Debate, Iron Rages, we really covered the Arnold heavily before the show to build hype up for it. When we got there, we had a very professional operation going. We were doing wrap-ups and winter interviews and expo interviews. And for some reason, probably because they're frustrated with the fact that they're going out of business, Sean Ray of Muscle Development decided that he was going to accost the interview with Ahmad Ashkenani. He took him away without even coming over and talking. He just turned him, grabbed him, and pulled him over. Didn't say a word to us. Didn't say, hey guys, can I interview him for? Just wanted to be obnoxious. Probably figured that I wasn't going to respond. When I did respond, I think most people understood, hey, he should have got punched in the face, but that's not who I am. I rebutted in the sense that I verbally rebutted him, and I got him on camera doing it. And then Peter McGuff lost his mind for whatever reason, whether he was drinking or not, we don't know. He bumped us, and he poked me, and he told us to piss off and go F ourselves, and so he lost his mind. So, of course, I got to respond to these things. These things, I'm not just going to let these things roll off my head. That's no way. Sean Ray's not going to get away with that shit, and he somehow sidelined himself, and now it became about Peter McGuff and Ron Harris, which they really weren't even involved. Peter McGuff should have minded his own business, but the truth is that Sean Ray started the whole thing, and so if you want to call anyone immature, it was Sean. Don't say that I started trouble by breaking into his interview, because that's bull, because what happened was Sean started with us. We don't even care about them because they're a non-entity in our coverage anymore. They don't do anything. Plus, they were all so tired from the weekend that they couldn't put up any video footage. They're finally putting up the Meet the Arnold competitors interviews today when it should have gone up last Thursday. So it is what it is. I had a great time with Chris and Johnny and you and Ralph Noble. We had a terrific weekend. We did some great coverage. I hope you guys out there loved the coverage. That's why we do it. I don't go to a lot of shows anymore, but when we go to the big ones, we try to give you guys top-notch coverage. And that's really the only goal. If MD wants to get in my way or they want to start trouble with us, which is what happened, they're going to get it back. And they're going to get it back 10 times over because we're way better at dishing it out than they are.
On that note, we now go to our questions. Again, this is your weekly 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. questions on diet, training, supplementation, and of course, everything that happened on the stage at this past weekend's Arnold Classic. Let's go to Aaron_Whiteley. Speaking of competitors, Dave, when is Rashid Oldaker next going to take the stage?
It's a good question. Rashid and I have started the diet process, and we will see him on stage over the summer. I'm not sure exactly which shows yet, but I think Tampa will probably be one in the picking. But he's looking good. He's got a lot of size on him, and he's ready. He's finally ready to get back on stage and do some damage.
Let's go to Half Asian Bra. I've heard people recommending doing 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. Why do you recommend?
All right, Sid's breaking up, but I think I got the question. The question was, some people recommend that people take Clenbuterol on a 2 week on, 2 week off rotation. Now, no one has uniquely developed that protocol. This protocol was developed by Bill Phillips back in 1992 when he wrote the Anabolic Reference Guide, and he used to put out these little newsletters. And he says, they just discovered Clenbuterol as a fat burner, and he said, I think it works better if you take it on 2 weeks, 2 weks on, 2 weeks off. And I experimented with that in the beginning when I first started using it, and I always found that you look really good for 2 weeks, but then when you go off it, you kind of set yourself back. So what I experimented with doing is staying on it. And what I realized is that the stuff doesn't stop working. It might stop working a little bit, but it's still burning fat. Just like steroids. When you first take steroids, the first 4 to 6 weeks, you get great gains, and then they taper off. But you don't go off the steroids because of that. You stay on them. You're still going to grow. You're just not going to grow at the same rate because your body's not going to just burn fat like crazy. It's going to try to stop itself from burning fat because it doesn't want to burn itself up. So there's no reason to stop Clenbuterol and start it. If you're going to use it for 12 to 16 weeks, and then take off periods. But I find it to be very effective. Now, you do need to increase the dosage. I usually start at 20 micrograms twice a day, and then every 2 to 3 weeks I increase it by 20 micrograms, never going over 120 micrograms in 1 day period. And that's my rules. They work well. I've been doing it for 25 years. I've been helping people use it, including myself, and that's the best protocol.
Let's go to On That Grind at 2225. Will Titan Medical prescribe HGH and or IGF?
I believe that IGF will be available. I know that they do prescribe sermorelin, which is growth hormone releasing hormone. The GH is very expensive from a pharmacy, like super expensive, and no one's going to really want to pay those prices. So that's why the GHRH or the sermorelin is a much better alternative. Like I said, the IGF one will probably become available, and I'm actually right now, I was in conversation with them the other day about getting some HMG, because I know a lot of guys are ask me for my baby making protocol, which is the HCG, Clomidin, and HMG, which is human menopausal gonadotropin, much harder to find. The brand name in the US is called Pergonal. They charge thousands of dollars for this stuff, which is bullcrap. The only reason why they can get away with that is because it's considered what they call an orphan drug. It's just like GH. It doesn't, for those of you who don't know, it doesn't cost any more money to synthesize GH or insulin. Insulin and GH cost the same to make, but insulin you can get for $80 for a bottle, and GH is going to be like 100 times that amount, okay? Because they consider it an orphan drug. Not enough people use it, so they allow the drug companies to charge exorbitant prices for it to try to make their profits up that way, because they're not having a lot of people using it. So I think it's a load of crap, to be honest with you, but they're going to get hopefully a generic form of Pergonal or HMG at Titan so that people can use that when they're trying to get people pregnant or coming off a cycle. Of course, also they have the injectable amino acids, and my favorite, which I always talk about, is the injectable glutathione, which needs to be kept refrigerated. They actually ship you that on ice. I've been taking a cc of that every day. I feel terrific. I don't get sick. I love the stuff. I think it's amazing. The great thing about glutathione is that it must be injected. It can't be orally taken because it doesn't get absorbed otherwise. So Titan's doing some great stuff over there. For most people, they're looking for hormone replacement. The testosterone that they prescribe is terrific. It's high quality. It comes right from a pharmacy. And if you have any joint issues that are documented by a doctor, you can get Deca-Durabolin from them too for joint relief. So A great company. If you go to TitanMedicalCenter.com and you mention the RxMuscle or Dave Palumbo sent you, they will give you a very big discount. So guys, check it out. The great thing about them also is you don't need to go visit them. You can do Skype consults with the doctor. So if you live in California or you live in Seattle, Washington, it doesn't matter. You can still use them for their services.
This is Ask Dave, brought to you by Species Nutrition. And of course, Dave, this past weekend, on Arnold Weekend, Species Nutrition dropped Crealize, Species' very own creatine product. For those who may not have used it in the past, of course, this is a reprisal of Crealize brought back to Species Nutrition lineup. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit more about Crealize and the benefits?
Well, the original Crealize was a very unique, novel, patented formula that was a liquid creatine, believe it or not. It was a liquid creatine concentrate. So you would put a capful in 8 ounces of water, and it was in a glycerol base, and a very alkaline glycerol base, so it protected the creatine from the stomach acids, and it was 100% soluble. It was a great product, but it was very expensive to make, and it didn't taste so good because glycerol is very overwhelmingly sweet in your mouth. So I said, you know what? It was heavy to ship, and it was expensive. Even though it was a terrific product, I said I'm gonna go back to the drawing board. I know people like powders; they're more economical. I can sell them at a more reasonable price so people can afford it. And I just realized that the solubility issue is the main problem with creatine. It doesn't mix well in water. I mean, if it falls to the bottom of the glass, you're not absorbing that. So, the new technology that's out is micronization, where they take the creatine granules and they pulverize it into a nice fine dust, which reduces the surface area, which makes it easier to liquid, to solubilize in water. But even with the micronized creatine, it's still not that good, the solubility. So I found a process or a company that can make me what I call the ultra micronization process. They take the micronized creatine and then they pulverize that even more into a very, very fine, almost like baby powderish like consistency. And that seems to mix really well. So once again, it's a very affordable product. It's available at speciesnutrition.com. It'll probably be available everywhere probably over the next week or two. And give it a shot. I tell people throw 5 grams in your post-workout shake. You don't even know what's in there, and you're going to get great results from that. It'll help replace the creatine that you use while you're training. And some people like to take it twice a day. If you take it twice a day, take it in the morning and then take it after you train. Those are probably the 2 best times.
Of course, this past weekend, Cedric McMillan winning the Arnold Classic title. And after the show, Dave, interviewing Cedric, asked him specifically about Phil Heath, if he feels as if his physique can defeat Phil Heath at the Olympia. And of course, we were expecting to get questions along those lines. And Nuno146 wants to know, with Chris Aceto, and Cedric finally nailing down what look is best for Cedric, is it conceivable that Cedric could realistically challenge Phil at this year's Mr. Olympia?
It's conceivable, but we have yet to see Cedric show up at the Olympia in his best condition yet. He's either too flat, or he's not hard enough, or he gets sick. So Cedric has problems with the Olympia, just like Kai Green does. And they're both great bodybuilders. So the question is, which Cedric will show up? Phil Heath is very consistent. Phil Heath also has a very granitely hard, just as round as Cedric's physique. Even though Cedric flows better than Phil is hard to beat because of the conditioning he brings to that stage with the 3D muscle. I don't know. Cedric does have a nicer physique than Phil Heath, but Tony Freeman had a better physique than a lot of guys back in the day too. Dexter and Jay, and he had a tough time winning, or getting to the top of the Olympia level. The best he was 5th in 08, and he probably should, he was either 4th or 5th, and he should have probably won that year. That was one of the best year that he ever was, and he also had that beautiful physique, but he had, he wouldn't come in quite as crisp in his glutes and hamstrings. That one year, 08, he came in at his best, and they probably should have given him the Olympia, but they didn't. And that's Cedric's problem. We don't know who's going to show up. So if I was a betting man, I would bet with Phil Heath. If I'm betting with my heart and what I think looks better aesthetically, I would go with Cedric, of course.
Let's go to Boy from Paris. I recently got my blood work done and found out my CK levels were elevated At 304, the reference value is 40 to 195. Any tips on how to lower this? I took Ritalin for a month straight before the blood work at 20 to 60 mgs a day, as I like to use that during my exam period. Do you think this could be the reasoning behind these levels? I'm also running isotretinoin at the moment. I believe it's called Accutane in America. So much hate for the show from Belgium.
Yeah, CK levels or creatine kinase levels, or we even call it CPK here, creatine phosphokinase levels, is an enzyme that they detect in the bloodstream. What this enzyme does inside the muscle cells is it converts creatine creatine monohydrate into creatine phosphate, which keeps the ATP regenerated inside the muscle cell. That's why when you're working out, you never run out of energy, because creatine phosphate buffers ATP. And when ATP gets used as fuel, it regenerates it. Okay, just that's simplistically what goes on inside the muscle cell. Now, when you're breaking down muscle in the gym, because think about what you just do a leg workout, for instance. You're squatting, leg pressing, you're breaking down a lot of leg musculature. When those cells break apart, okay, which is the impetus for them to come back bigger and stronger, they leak the components of the cell into the bloodstream. And a lot of what's in the cell is creatine kinase, creatine phosphokinase, because that's the enzyme that's inside the cell converting the creatine into creatine phosphate. So when you detect high levels of CPK or CK in the bloodstream, it usually indicates muscle damage. The problem is in the medical profession, they see that as heart damage, like, oh, you had a heart attack. Because when you get a heart attack, they test your CPK levels, because if the heart muscle breaks down, it's releasing these enzymes as well. Likewise, the liver contains creatine kinase in it as well. So if the liver is damaged, it releases that. But when you get these ridiculously high amounts of CPK, the only place all that enzyme can actually be coming from is skeletal muscle, because the heart is this big, and you know what I mean? It's very small. So you can't produce enough from the heart. Same thing with the liver. Liver's this big. So if you're having enormous amounts of CPK, it's coming from muscle. And the only way to get a real accurate level on that would be to not train for 2 weeks at the gym. And no one's going to do that just for blood work. So in the United States, they don't even do CPK levels anymore. Now, if you had a heart attack, they might do it. But they don't do it in routine blood work because they know it's not accurate.
We have another competition-related question from Brooks Clark. Dave, do you think Ahmad Ashkenani has more of a chance of beating Flex Lewis or Sean Roden beating Phil at the 2017 Olympia?
I think that Flex Lewis is so dominant now in that 212 class that it would take a miracle, okay, for him not to win this coming year. And the only thing that would stop him would be himself. So if he got injured, for instance, or got sick and left the door open a little bit, some of these guys could sneak in. I don't think Ashkenani is near Flex Lewis right now because of Flex's legs are so much better than Ashkenani's. Likewise, that's why Jose just can't beat Flex. He just doesn't have the crispness of his physique. Plus, Flex happens to be a terrific poser, and he really knows how to show his strengths and hide his weaknesses very well. So probably, if I was a betting man, which I'm not, I would probably say Roden has a better chance of beating Heath than Ashkenani does of beating Flex Lewis.
Let's go to S_Spall95. My question is, how long do you suggest a weightlifting session should be for someone who has an 8-hour desk job? Should they lift longer and not worry about overtraining?
Everyone should worry about overtraining. Whether you're sitting at a desk job or you're running around all day, raking leaves, your body can only handle so much weight training. And if you break down too much muscle for too long a period of time, you're not going to recover from the workouts. And it goes back to what I've said before. The muscles don't exhaust. The nervous system does. Remember, the nervous system, the nerves must tell the muscles what to do. So the nerves tell the bicep muscles to lift that bait, curl that barbell. The problem is that if the nervous system has to tell the muscle to do something too many times, those neurotransmitters that are transmitting the signal to the muscle run out. And when they run out, you get weak, you feel lethargic, you feel overtired, run down. So these are all symptoms of what we call overtraining. Once you get to that point where you've exhausted all the neurotransmitters, you're screwed. You can't undo what you did. So the key is not to get to that point and to always stop your workout short of exhaustion so that you don't overwork the nervous system. And the best way to regenerate the nervous system, sleep. If you don't sleep at night, very easy to become overtrained as well. So if you're sitting behind a desk, that's fine. Go to the gym, Give it 45 minutes, an hour and 10 minutes, 100%, and then get out of that gym, go eat and recover.
Let's go to Muhammad_Al-Fahad, another training question. Dave, how do you bring up forearms, high reps, heavy weights, train them more frequently?
I had smaller forearms when I was coming up. I had good arms, and my forearms were a little behind because I have a long arm with a long wrist. And I found that training them twice a week worked well. I only train them once a week, now and later in my career I went down to once a week. But I did them on bicep day. And I also did them like one other day during, maybe on back or something like that. And it's very simple. All I would be reverse or curls like this, wrist curls, usually with either a bar or I like to do like a cable and put my hand right here and do wrist curls. That works the flexor compartment. And for the extensor compartment, I would just grab also a cable or a dumbbell and do reverse raises. I also do hammer curls when I do biceps, and that works some of that brachioradialis muscle. So the bottom line is that you don't want to overtrain them. I say 15 rep sets, 2 sets for curls, 2 sets for reverse curls, and 2 sets of hammers twice a week is enough. And I wouldn't do the hammers twice a week. I would only do the hammers on bicep day. So once again, you're blasting it hard, enough weight that you can barely get 15 reps twice a week, and I guarantee you'll bring up your forearms.
We have a couple of different questions regarding the conditioning level, the overall level of conditioning at the Arnold Classic. Let me see I'm trying to pick one of them, but basically, okay, so the question is that many have said that the level of conditioning at this Arnold Classic may have been the worst. Again, opinion-based, it's all subjective, the worst since the Arnolds began. Do you agree with this assessment, and if so, why?
No, I don't agree with it. I've seen some pretty bad years, believe it or not. I can't remember offhand. I probably Dexter won a few of them. He was probably the only guy who really looked good in the lineup. I remember there was some weak years when Branch Warren made that comeback with his quad, with the quad tear that year. I mean, he wasn't at his best, but he was better than everyone else. But everyone else was pretty bad too. I didn't think it was that bad this year. I thought there was some guys in pretty good shape. Obviously, Dallas McCarver was tremendous. Michael Lockett was tremendous in the lineup. Just 2 to come to my head. Cedric's conditioning was good. It wasn't, peeled to the bone, but you can't take Cedric down to peel to the bone. If you do that, he doesn't look good. He needs to have that fullness and roundness to his muscle bellies. But he's a genetic freak, so it doesn't even matter with him. But there were guys. The 212 lineup was stupendous with conditioning. So I don't agree with that statement.
Let's go to Nikki Scops. Dave, how often do you come across adrenal fatigue in bodybuilders? If so, what is the best remedy, prescription meds, or something natural?
Adrenal fatigue is exactly what I talked about before. It's basically exhaustion of the neurotransmitters because the adrenal glands produce epinephrine and norepinephrine, which are neurotransmitters. When you run out of these because you're either overtraining or you're not getting enough rest, okay, we say we're in adrenal fatigue. It's really not that. We're just using up all the neurotransmitters. And once again, the only way to regenerate that is to sleep more, rest more, and recover. You don't want to get to that point. Now, taking a ton of stimulants, what do stimulants do? They make the adrenal glands produce more norepinephrine. That's why they make you feel alert. Okay? If you're taking tons and tons of stimulants all day long, you're going to exhaust these neurotransmitters, and you will get to that point of whatever you want to call it, adrenal fatigue. I call it overtraining. Some people call it clinical depression. It's the same symptoms. Clinical depression is a lack of neurotransmitters in the brain, so the nerves can't communicate with each other. So all caused by the same problem, lack of neurotransmitters or overexhaustion of them.
Hussein Ashur, is there a difference between hypoglycemia from getting into ketosis and hypoglycemia with people who are not dieting?
Well, hypoglycemia doesn't really occur when you're going into ketosis. When you're in ketosis, your blood sugar is stable because the brain is not using glucose as a fuel source. It's using fat. So, that's the advantage of being in ketosis, that you're going to have stable blood sugar. You won't be low. Even though you're eating no carbs, your blood sugar doesn't drop because the brain is not stealing glucose for energy from the bloodstream. It's using fats as a fuel source. That's why it works so well. That's why you don't get moody. That's why you don't get mood swings or ups and downs or blood sugar drops. Now, if you're just eating a normal diet and you're getting blood sugar drops, and I've worked with clients who have this problem, a lot of it's called reactive hypoglycemia, meaning certain foods that are very high glycemic index cause your body to over-release insulin. When your body over-releases insulin, it drops your blood sugar and you feel low. So if you eat like white rice and you get super low blood sugar after that, it's because it's such a quick responding carb that you release insulin too quickly and too much, and then you drop your blood sugar lower than it was before, and then you feel like you get the shakes, you get the cold sweats, you get irritable. The remedy for that is to eat higher glycemic foods, lower glycemic foods like sweet potatoes, brown rice. Also combine your carb sources with protein and fats, which slow the absorption of them down tremendously. So 2 different scenarios.
Blake_Sinclair, is it possible to build muscle in a calorie deficit if the deficit is induced by carb reduction and protein and fats are still at a suitable level?
It's possible. It's possible because remember, carbs don't build muscle. They're just a fuel source. Assuming you're eating enough protein and fat to make up, give your body enough fuel, then all that extra protein and fat will get used for building and repairing muscle. So the term calorie deficit is really not a good term because calories don't mean anything. If you're in a carbohydrate deficit, can you build muscle? The answer is yes. Probably not as much muscle as you would gain if you were eating some carbs, because carbs do spare muscle, or do spare protein in the diet so that it can be used for building muscle. So it's harder to build muscle on a low carb diet, but it's not impossible.
We'll take one more quick hitter first. A shout out to Andy El Toro, says he is watching from his hospital bed right now. So he wanted a quick shout out. Andy, our best wishes. Hope you get well soon. Final question is from Quinn Kane. I'm going to skip over the I hates and so on and so forth. Was a serious stretching or yoga ever part of your training protocol? Any recommendation on stretching programs to combat the stiffness that accompanies heavy lifting?
I was always a very flexible guy. I could just go to the gym and stretch for 10 minutes and I'm good. But a lot of guys are super stiff. And I did do yoga for 2 years, more as a meditative, relaxing type of thing, to really de-stress. But I learned some great stretches in there. I highly encourage people, if they have time, to do a yoga class once a week, twice a week. It's very peaceful. The problem with these yoga classes is they usually go for an hour and a half. They're very long and exhausting. I used to do yoga and then go to the gym. And I was exhausted at the gym after I would do these yoga classes. Even though a lot of it was just stretching and breathing, it's a lot of focus. When you're mentally that focused, sometimes it exhausts you mentally. So I do like the yoga. If you could take a yoga class late at night after you've done your workout already, probably a better choice. But it's definitely something that if you have a lot of anxiety in your day, if you have high blood pressure, if you think about things too much, it's very good at grounding you.
That's going to do it for this episode of Ask Dave. Check RxMuscle.com and our YouTube channel for all the videos from this past weekend's Arnold Classic, interviews with the winners, expo interviews. Right now on RxMuscle.com, we have an interview with Rich Piana. Dave, let's go back to you.
Yeah, I just want to say a couple things. I want to thank everyone for really helping us out this weekend, especially the whole staff. You, Johnny, Chris, Raphael Noble. Without you guys, we would never have made this weekend a possibility. So I want to say thank you for that. Also, a lot of people have been asking me about the Dave Palumbo Experience app. If you guys are looking for a lot of knowledge on nutrition, supplementation, performance-enhancing drugs, workout regimens, if you don't have the money to hire a coach, for $29 a month, you go to your iPhone store or you go to your Android app store, you download the Dave Palumbo Experience. It's updated daily. I do a private, if you like these Q&As, I do a private one on there with super great questions, all submitted by the people who are the app members. And we have a very big app audience on there. So I answer your questions. It's like you got me as a coach. So I answer questions daily. The best ones I take out and I do a Q&A, a private Q&A every week. Plus, like I said, there's updates to this thing every single day because I submit them to my partner. He puts them up. and people are loving the app. So I really want to encourage you guys to check it out. It's a great resource. A lot of people have been asking me, hey Dave, where do I go learn about, all these different things in our field? What's the best resource? And I always say to myself, I wish I had a book. Well, this is the book. No one reads books anymore. People love apps. This is why we created it. We created it for you guys, the fans, and for the people who are looking just for knowledge. So check that out. There's a link off DavePalumbo.com, but you can go right to your app store and just download it.
And subscribe if you haven't subscribed, hitting the button below. And Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.